Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of your Brains Coach podcast. My name is Shurina. I'm your host, I'm your Brains Coach, and it is my job here to bring to you all the best brain body tools so you feel, look, and do your absolute best. And today, as you guessed from the title of this podcast, we are talking about looking better, but also the state of our weight, our body weight. It is a reflection of our health. And so if we easily maintain optimal body weight, or whatever that is for us, for your age, for your gender, for your genetics, for your lifestyle. So if we easily maintain optimal body weight, then we don't just look better. We also feel better. We have better health and our brain works better. And everything else works better in our body, in our life. So weight loss, right? It's a highly loaded, I think, term these days. It's either, people talk about body neutrality or, have different ideas and opinions about what people's weight should be. From my perspective, everyone can decide what kind of health and weight they're good at and comfortable with and what serves them the best. Like everyone has this choice. But if you are at the moment struggling with being where you want weight-wise and you feel like it doesn't really work for you to be in the body weight that you are most of the time in, and you want to change it, and you want to understand how to get into your optimal body weight that you feel comfortable with and stay there without having to feel like you always have to be on some sort of diet or have to restrict everything or have to count every single calorie and watch yourself really consciously around food. Like that's what I was trying to do back several years until I figured out how my brain works with food and how to put together a system that is natural, that feels good, and that finally makes me feel normal around food. Like I don't have to control myself. My body just controls what it needs to control, and I stay in the exact shape that I'm comfortable in. And for me, it means actually having a six-pack abs. And for a woman, they say, oh, it's a lot of restriction. And actually not. I just, again, figure out what works exactly for this body composition and what feels natural. I hate counting calories. I always hated to restrict things like carbs. Yeah, keto works until, you crave your carbs and you give in and it doesn't work anymore. And then you're always on this roller coaster. Or counting calories. Yes, it works, but I hated to have to count every single piece of food that I put into my mouth and then still feel like I'm hungry. Like I hate being hungry. And that's why I started to research a better system for myself. Like why do some people seem naturally being able to control their appetite and they stay in great shape, and when they eat a dessert they don't go overboard and they don't overeat and they don't feel the need to overeat. Like why are some people so normal around food? And so I started experimenting and I figured out the system that worked, and I actually taught a lot of my clients the same system. Some taught that system, some tweaked it a little bit to work for them. But the principles are foundational and the basic. And current science confirms that this is what actually works for most brains. And, some people are okay with calorie counting. Some people love their keto, low carb diets. And if this works for them, and this is what makes, their health, their weight works, then it's amazing. But as we can see in our modern world where obesity levels are growing, it is not working for most people. Yeah, calorie counting would work, but who's going to stick with that? And again, as we see in our modern world, not so many people. And I couldn't stick with that. Like I could stick with it for, a couple of months, maybe even half a year. But then it would all go out of the window because I hated feeling hungry and restriction. Not understanding why is it I'm always hungry? Why do I have those cravings? And why can I control myself around certain foods? And again, as modern state of society, weight-wise shows and what science tells us about how our satiety works. It's actually normal to not have control of your hunger when all the pieces are not put in place that help your brain, that help your gut, that help your whole body to control that hunger, to stay at optimal state of health and weight. Our brain, our bodies, they want us to thrive. They want us to work optimally. And so we need to be able to figure out, okay, this is how my body works. This is how my brain works. And this is what I do to stay optimally healthy, to stay optimally fit, and to not struggle with all this weight and cravings and fitness and self-esteem, all the tangled together in this weight loss journey. So today I'm going to share with you the system that I've discovered, and what I'm learning these days. It's not just me. Again, there are scientists, there are neuroscientists, there are nutritionists who figured the same system out. Now, there are some variations and people describe things a little bit differently. But when you put the pieces that I'm going to share with you today together, you're almost 100% guaranteed to finally take control of your hunger, to finally take control of your cravings, to lose that weight easily, and to stay in your optimal weight for life. Yesterday, I was doing some research on weight loss trends and what people are curious about, what people ask, what kind of questions. And it's always like, what's the fastest way? What's the fastest weight loss pill? What's the fastest weight loss diet or exercise program for weight loss? And, the statistics is 90% of the people regain weight. So all the people looking for the fastest way actually end up having that weight for life. So this is not the fastest way, folks. So for me, the fastest way is when you lose it one time and you keep it. This is the fastest way. And then for the rest of your life, you don't have to worry about that stuff. That is the fastest way to lose weight. Because if you lose something for a couple of months and then you gain it back, it's not really progress if you're always on the same journey. And somebody who might see you in the regain weight, it's like it's never happened. So the fastest way to lose weight is to lose it once for life. And that's where I got, and not just me, a lot of people got there and they figured out the system. And I'm going to share with you what science tells us, the crucial, vital things to put together in order to have the best chance to lose that weight, to get into your optimal weight and stay there without starving yourself, having to control yourself all the time around food, counting every calorie, and or restricting a whole food group like going keto or low carb or whatever that might be. So let's get to business, or let's get to details. So what is the system? First thing I want you to understand, folks, is the way your brain reacts to foods and why you might crave certain things and have insatiable hunger for highly processed foods, for example, like I used to have. I would eat a cookie, I would eat a piece of cake, I would eat chips, and I wouldn't be able to stop. You might be one of the people, like a lot of people are, what I like to call dopamine high responders. When you eat foods that spike your dopamine, that elevate that pleasure in your brain, that light up pleasure centers, reward centers in your brain, you cannot stop eating that food. You are highly sensitive to that dopamine. In that evolutionary, might have been a great thing to find that jackpot and stay there and be motivated to continue seeking it and eating it, right? But in our food environment, of course, that is not an advantage, because then you keep eating food that is available and you never stop, and you keep eating it, and you are putting on weight and health problems, and then you have this, whole guilty feeling that you cannot stop yourself for some reason. It has nothing to do with your willpower. Your brain is wired to seek reward, and foods with a lot of calories that are easy to eat, with a lot of fat, with a lot of flavor, with a lot of sugars, with a lot of, salt, all of these foods, they lead up your reward centers in your brain, and your brain is wired to seek that highly rewarding food. So number one thing you want to understand, there is nothing wrong with your brain. Your brain is doing just fine, at least at the beginning, until you get to a place where your health starts starts to suffer. So the brain is normal. Now you need to rewire that reward center so your brain functions well again, and so your satiety kicks in just in time to prevent you eating too much, right? So your prefrontal cortex also works really well, like a lot of different terms. But folks, back to the system. So the first thing you want to understand is your brain is totally normal. And what you need to do to start rewiring your brain is to, for a while, stick completely to low dopamine foods. What are low dopamine foods? There is no such official term, but low dopamine foods are basically natural foods, not ultra highly processed foods that been altered, that are made with ingredients that you wouldn't have in your kitchen, ingredients that your grandma wouldn't recognize, basically foods that your grandma wouldn't recognize. Low dopamine foods are whole foods of all kinds, fruit and vegetables and meats and fish and beans and grains and nuts, not altered. And for those of you who struggle and been struggling with cravings a lot, for the next 8 weeks, I recommend to go completely off all these processed foods and start eating whole foods only. Again, all the stuff that was powdered, flour, added sugars, added fats, added flavorings, just get it all out. And you might think, well, that's another diet. No, what I'm saying is remove the foods that were highly processed, but stick with all the other whole foods and don't starve yourself. Don't count anything, but ramp up, raise the quality of your foods dramatically. And those are foods that will produce much lower dopamine response. That's why it's low dopamine diet. You start to keep your dopamine levels at a certain level, so that would start prevent your cravings, your insatiable appetite. And that is actually pretty easy to do. I, at some point, did this challenge for myself. I said, for the next year, I set myself for a year, I'm going to eat nothing but whole foods cooked in different ways. And I did that. And after that, I realized that I lost my sweet tooth. I lost my cravings, and I would eat. And when I would eat a piece of cake, I could actually just eat that piece or not even finish, because my brain finally started to work fine. That's just first piece of the puzzle. Eating on a lower dopamine side, meaning foods that do not produce that spike of dopamine, that are not engineered, but are naturally grown, or, in case of animals, they were running around. So again, fruit, vegetables, fish, meat, chicken, beans, grains, all the whole foods that you love, that your stomach works well with, all the whole foods, not ultra processed. Those are foods that we're going to stick with on our low dopamine diet, what I call it. It's not really diet. You, again, allowed to eat all these foods, just not the ultra processed foods. And yes, at first it's going to be difficult, because your brain actually is used now to higher dopamine spikes. And so the foods that I'm telling you about, they're not going to produce that pleasure hit. And that's what you need to work around to rewire your brain to not being used to that spikes, this dopamine hits that are naturally produced by highly processed foods. So this is number one, eat low dopamine foods. Number two, eat essentials. And that is the second very crucial part of the diet, to rewire your brain, to stop the cravings, to stop the overeating, to get into your optimal weight and stay there without counting calories, carbs, and all kinds of crazy diets. So number two, eat essentials. And by that we mean eat proper amount of protein, 1 gram per pound of body weight, or about 2 grams per kilogram of body weight. So start there. Hit your protein for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, divided into 3 parts. Whether you animal protein is always best. Shakes works. If you eat enough protein-rich plant-based foods, you also get the amount of protein that you need. So number two, eat your essentials, and it starts with eating your protein. Then you eat your fruit and vegetables for vitamins, for minerals, for carbohydrates, for fiber, for those prebiotics that feed your gut bacteria, that play a huge role in controlling your appetite and satiety. And by eating those plant-based foods with a lot of different fibers, what you actually do in your gut, you cultivate a specific kind of bacteria, not one kind, but different kinds, that will then crave fiber-rich foods instead of craving some junk food. What you eat cultivates or grows the kind of bacteria that then create cravings for these other foods. One of the huge piece of your cravings, folks, and why you cannot stop them is because when you introduce certain processed foods, you keep the gut bacteria that eat those foods, that process those foods alive, and then they create cravings in addition to what your brain wants. They create cravings for this food, so they survive. I know it sounds crazy, but your gut bacteria, and research is already there, do create cravings for the specific foods that they need to survive. And so when you starve bacteria that eat junk foods, you're going to starve that bacteria. It's going to die off. It actually dies off in a few days. So if you completely eliminate those processed foods, that bacteria that creates cravings for junk food will die off, and you'll start craving less and less and less of junk foods very, very fast. So number 2, eat essential. And I started talking about fiber and gut microbiome, but it's a part 2 of our 4-pillar of lean brain framework, what I call it. And number 2, eat essentials, and it starts with protein. Then we talk about fruit and vegetables, 900 grams a day. That's what researchers, what different professionals in nutrition field and health field recommend to have the opportunity to get all the vitamins and nutrients and enough fiber to feed your gut bacteria, right? So eat your protein, eat your fruit and vegetables, and then look into specific nutrients that people tend to go low on, that are very important for different metabolic processes, for in general to maintain your health. And also what's important, some of those nutrients like omega-3 fatty acids, your brain, there are special neuropods or special receptors, special nerves and cells that sense what kind of nutrients you get from your foods. And omega-3 fatty acids are essential fats that you need to get from your diet. So are omega-6s, by the way, but usually people get enough of omega-6s and not enough omega-3s. So when you eat enough omega-3 fatty acids, that helps to blunt the hunger, because your brain will know that you get all the essential nutrients. That also happens with protein. Fiber has a special role, but omega-3 fatty acids, like a lot of nutrients, your brain, your digestive system, they actually sense what nutrients you get. And if you don't get essential nutrients, you're gonna be hungrier on a regular basis, no matter how many calories you eat, because you don't get those essential nutrients. Your brain, your digestive system, your body, they don't just need calories, they also need 30 plus essential vitamins and minerals and other compounds like omega-3 fatty acids that need to be present in your food. And our food got less nutrients because of poor soil and other complications. What you want to understand, if you don't eat essential nutrients, your hunger is going to be elevated, you're going to eat more calories, and it's going to be harder for you to maintain weight. That's why you want to focus on getting those nutrients from foods, of course, eating your protein, eating your fruit and vegetables, eating your omega-3s from things like fatty fish, sardines or salmon. If you don't eat those consistently, I recommend my clients always to get those every day. If you don't eat your fatty fish, then supplement with fish oil. I'm personally a huge fan of sardines. If you're not, then supplementation is your next best thing. So getting your omega-3s and then taking your multivitamin and multimineral to make sure that you do get all the essential nutrients on a regular basis. And when your brain, when your gut sense that you get everything you need, you're not going to be craving a lot of stuff on a regular basis. For me personally, actually, I worked with a couple of people recently on their nutrition for focus, for the flow states, for memory, etc. And so we chose supplements, and they started taking them. And after 3-4 weeks, they're like, Angela, we worked on my brain, but actually not that hungry anymore. And I find it easy to just eat my meals, and I don't crave snacks, and I don't have this, hunger attacks when you just want to eat everything. And I find it much easier to maintain weight. I actually probably lost weight, so that's what people would comment to me. And that happens as a side effect of you getting all of the essential nutrients. So when people ask me, what's the fastest weight loss pill? I'm like, take your multivitamin, multimineral, take your omega-3s, and it will help you to lose that weight and keep it for life. So number 2, eat your essential nutrients. And again, take a consultation with nutritionist at least once. Make sure that you get everything in your diet that you need, because most of you folks are not capable. No offense, but most of you are not capable to figure out whether you get everything in your diet or not. Again, there are 30 plus essential nutrients, and we're still adding more. So just make sure that you get all of that. Otherwise, it's going to be hard for you to not feel hungry, because your brain, again, your brain's primary purpose is your survival. And so if you don't get certain nutrients that are needed for survival, your brain will ramp up that hunger. So you go and seek out those foods. I hope you understand now why very often a lot of people feel hungry, because a lot of people do not eat what they need. The pillar number 3 of our lean brain framework, sleep. And sleep has several components. It has timing. It has light exposure. So, of course, schedule the time. When I work with people on their sleep habits, a lot of people don't understand that the first step is to schedule their 7 to 9 hours of sleep. A lot of people go to bed at 10 and they want to wake up no, a lot of people actually don't go to bed at 10. They go to bed, they want to go to bed at 10, but they end up going 11 and 12. And then they wake up at 5 or 6 because they have this agenda, the schedule of, certain things getting done. And when I look at that schedule, I'm like, you don't even have time for sleep. How do you expect yourself to sleep for 7 to 9 hours if you don't even have 7 to 9 hours for sleep in your schedule? So step number 1, schedule those 7 to 9 hours. 8, probably great idea, because when you go to bed, most people are not super effective sleepers. So when they go to bed, they don't fall asleep right away. So schedule, right? And then we have light exposure. So in the morning, in the first couple of hours of sunrise, get outside, get that sun exposure. We have no bright light before going to bed. We have more light exposure during the day. Actually, light exposure helps to boost serotonin production. Serotonin blunts your hunger, and that's where kind of light component comes into your hunger, your weight loss journey. So light, and then when you boost your serotonin with your light exposure in the morning and during the day, that serotonin is actually made into melatonin that makes you fall asleep effectively, sleep well at night. So if you don't get that serotonin that depends on light exposure, you don't get that melatonin and your sleep sucks. And then what research showed us, people who don't have great sleep or good sleep, people who are sleep deprived, who barely sleep 5-6 hours and the sleep is crappy, people have cravings and food consumption that is 500-600 calories. It's for processed food. On average, 300 calories. People consume on average 300 calories more than people who compared to themselves when they have full night of sleep. The reason being, there are hunger hormones like leptin that keeps you satiated. For example, the cycle has to do with your sleep, and it's regulated while you sleep, and then your ghrelin, the hormone that makes you hungry, upregulated. When you don't get enough sleep, your hunger hormones are out of balance, and they are out of balance in a way that makes you hungry. And hungry not just for any food, but specifically for highly processed foods, for carbohydrate-rich foods, for all the processed stuff that you don't want. So when you don't sleep well, you're always going to be hungry, and it's going to be harder to control your cravings and to maintain your optimal body weight, folks. So just know that. And if your sleep suffers, like when I don't get good night's sleep because of traveling or something else, I know that the next day I have to be really careful about what I eat. And I just stick to, specific foods and specific amounts, because I know that my hunger on that day is not my friend. And that's how a lot of people actually get their weight out of balance. Sleep deprivation on a regular basis will do that. And that's how you end up eating a lot more of foods and not of the best quality. So sleep. And then in sleep also, I have food timing. It's in the same category, because in order to get good sleep, you need to stop eating about 2-3 hours before bedtime to bring all of your metabolic processes to where they need to be, like your blood sugar, your the temperature of your core, all of these things and a lot more things are, and also your blood flow going to a digestive system. They happen differently when you eat right before bed. So not eating before bed is important. And so is not eating right after waking up, allowing certain hormones, certain cycle through you and your digestive system to get ready, and your, things like your insulin and your blood sugar to get where they need to be in optimal state to digest that food and absorb. But if I were to say, folks, I would focus on just not eating late. So 3 hours before bed time, stop eating, and that's the most important piece. And that all goes for me into sleep, because it all affects quality of your sleep, and your quality of sleep affects how hungry you are and how many cravings you have. So sleep, so important, folks. Again, if you suffer with sleep, work on that, because that will almost make it impossible to stay in your optimal body weight. Number 4, stress management. And that's a huge one. A lot of people I worked with, and as we know now from just research and data and surveys, a lot of people do stress eat. A lot of people. Or they do emotional eating, basically meaning when you are in an emotional state, usually some distress, some stress, but for a lot of people it's also, happy moments, we tend to change our eating patterns. And a lot of people overeat because of that, especially, loneliness, they say, can trigger hunger, like not eating by, I believe, 8 to 10 hours. So loneliness, like literally makes you hungry. And if you don't have any emotional regulation and stress management tools in your toolkit, like if you don't know how to do breath work, if you don't get outside when some stressor, hits you, if you don't have people you can connect with when you feel emotionally unbalanced, if you don't know how to tolerate uncomfortable emotions. My personal story, I had problems with emotional eating, and I would, get some stress in my life, and I would feel like I needed to overeat. Sometimes it was, healthy food, like a lot of nuts. Sometimes more often, it was snacks and cookies and chocolates and whatever was there in my fridge on that, highly rewarding scale of foods. And so I had this pattern, and then I realized that from what I was reading, and I was going through coaching certifications, that I just didn't practice stress management, emotional management tools and exercises. And then I started with breath work. So every time I would feel emotionally unbalanced, I would practice breathing, and I would go for walks. I would connect with my friends, my family. And I created this new pattern that I would move, I would breathe, I would get myself busy, I would connect with people. And after a while, I realized that this emotional eating pattern completely disappeared from my life. And I didn't ever have the urge anymore to eat when I got emotional, because I had other tools to deal with that were actually more effective. And soon my brain made the connection that, we had better tools that didn't compromise my long-term goals, and that emotional eating kind of fell off. And now I still sometimes get, rarely, but still sometimes get like, oh, I'm feeling lonely, maybe I should eat. I'm like, Angela, no, you're feeling lonely, not hungry. So go do something, schedule social time, go for a walk, smile at people, talk to someone. And that will help you to get what you actually need, not some food that you are not even hungry for. So stress management, emotional management, that's a huge thing, folks. And please do understand that if you don't know or don't practice those tools that are available, like breath work, 4-8, or any exhale, or just slow breathing for like 3 to 6 cycles. It happens very fast. If you don't go for walks, if you don't connect with people, if you don't do other stress management exercises, like, if you don't exercise, maybe doing yoga, maybe doing meditation, maybe doing some activities that help you to relax, maybe taking a bath, maybe listening to music or cooking for a lot of people is very relaxing. If you don't have any of those tools, that whenever stress hits and you don't manage it on a regular basis, you will feel hungrier, you will feel like eating snacks, highly processed foods, you'll feel like you need them to feel normal. But if you dig deeper, to feel normal, you actually needed something else. You needed to work with your emotions and regulate your stress. And again, there are a lot of tools. And if you, for example, by the way, if you need a session learning how to regulate your emotions without food, then email me, angela@brainbreakthroughcoach.com, angela@brainbreakthroughcoach.com. I help a lot of people to learn how to manage their stress and their emotions, and I can help you easily. The practices itself are so simple. You just need to practice them. And here you go. This is your 4-step formula, 4-step framework for wiring your lean brain, the brain that helps you to maintain optimal hunger, that doesn't crave things, that helps you to maintain optimal weight, that helps you to maintain optimal health, fitness, energy levels. So this is the framework. Now I understand, folks, it's a lot of pieces in it, from eating low dopamine foods, like what are they, to eating essentials, like there is a whole range of things, to even regulating your sleep quality. It's a lot of things, and I agree. But when you work with someone like myself, for example, who's going to walk you through each piece in the course of several weeks, let's say you take what I usually do for people, 8 weeks to install this system. When you go through this journey and you have it in your life, your weight will start falling off, your hunger will finally be where it needs to be, meaning you won't need to control it, and you lose your weight. That weight, you stay in your ideal weight for life. And there is so much energy that's going to be released, folks, for your life, for your work, for your relationship. You're finally not going to be stuck in your head thinking about all this, weight loss and cravings and food that might occupy so much of your time, of your day, and steal your potential and just not allowing you to live your life to the fullest. So imagining not having to worry about weight loss and food and diets ever again. I haven't worried about that for the past, 5 years, and that is so liberating. You have no idea, especially if you're a woman. So if you're interested in me helping you to learn the system, to put it into practice, with the best coaching strategists, email me, angela@brainbreakthroughcoach.com. And don't forget to share this episode with a lot of people who might struggle with their food habits, with their weight, with their health because of their food habits, who struggle with a lot of cravings. Share this podcast and make them aware that these are the things they actually need to work on, not another low carb diet or keto diet or I don't know, counting of whatever, eliminating whole food groups and then starving and always having to feel like you have to control yourself around food. Not that, but the system that actually rewires your brain and your gut, your whole system, to maintain optimal weight, optimal hunger, and to finally free yourself up of these food and diet concerns and start living your life to the fullest. So share. You make me so happy when you share it with the right people who actually need this. So share, reach out if you'd like help, and till next time, folks, till our next insightful episode. Send questions if you have them, and I don't know, live your life to the fullest. Get out there and seize the day, seize the opportunity, improve, learn, and live it to the fullest.